This is One-on-One with Mark Monteith on 1070 The Fan. Brought to you by Georgetown Market, Indy's family-owned natural food store since 1973. Movie Time Video Productions. They make your memories last forever. And Dr. Gary Walton, dentistry with a personal touch.
He was a poet who packed a punch. The centerpiece of the greatest trade in Pacers franchise history, he became the heart and soul of the teams that won 3 ABA championships. He was twice voted the league's most valuable player, and more than anyone on the Pacers roster, set the tone for consistent toughness. He never hesitated to fight for a cause. In fact, he's been in more fights during games than everyone else in Pacers history combined. But his passion shows in less violent ways, too. He's written thousands of poems, including one that helped convince Reggie Miller to stay retired. He's played for the Pacers, coached for the Pacers, and scouted for the Pacers for the better part of the last 40-plus years. But that ended recently when the franchise let him go. This interview was conducted before that happened, but his story remains as relevant and intriguing as ever. I'm Mark Monteith, and I'm going one-on-one with the baddest mother ever to play for the Pacers, Mel Daniels. All right, Mel, you ready?
Ready when you are.
The weird thing about you is that you didn't start playing basketball until your sophomore year in high school. Most people that I've talked with, most great players, started at a really young age.
First of all, I don't know if I was a great player. That's the very first
Well, you had your day, but you didn't start playing the game until you were a sophomore in high school.
In fact, I was forced to play by Coach Will Robinson. He made me play basketball. He confronted me in the hall one day, and he told me that I should be in the gym today at 3 o'clock. I missed that date. It was 2 days later. He saw me again. He grabbed me in the collar, pushed me against the wall, and said, "You be in the gym at 3:30. That's when my life began as a basketball.
And at that time, you had never played the game?
I had never touched a basketball.
What were you doing with yourself? I mean, as a kid?
I played football and a little baseball.
Yeah.
Never in my life touched a basketball.
That's amazing. I mean, how could you be growing up in Detroit? I guess there's playgrounds all around you.
There's playgrounds all around, and then I lived in a predominantly Polish neighborhood. There were some black families there, but predominantly Polish neighborhood. And the guys, we played baseball and football. That's what we did. Yeah, we did no basketball.
So you didn't watch, you didn't follow the Pistons?
I didn't follow the Pistons
anything.
or anyone, or college, high school, nothing.
Yeah. Had your dad been athletic?
My father was a baseball player. My mom was very athletic. She rode horses. She played baseball. She played basketball.
There must have been a break-in period here where you weren't really all that good.
No, in fact, I mean, I would get in a game that probably last 10, 20 seconds, and he would say, "Chief, when you get the ball, a guard will come and retrieve the ball from you. Once he retrieves the ball from you, then you may run down the floor and assume a position."
He didn't want you doing too much.
No, no. My mother was at every game, and when I got in, God bless her, she was just cheer and stuff. And in the summer, he had us in leagues, different leagues, 4 or 5 leagues. So basketball started coming easy for me. My junior year, we were the first team to go to state finals from Detroit in 32 years. After I graduated from high school, he had called me to his office and said, "Chief, we're going to the University of New Mexico."
He set it all up for you, huh?
Yeah, he did everything. Coach King came up. I had a visitation with Coach King, but I had gone to Western Michigan. I had scholarship offers from probably it was a larger box, you know, and he set up 4 visitations for me.
So you played, 3 years of high school ball or 2?
I played my sophomore year, and at the end of my sophomore year, he put me in a game against University of Detroit High School, and I had 20 points and 20 rebounds or something like that. I don't know, maybe a beam went off in his head, and then we had those. So I played the end of my sophomore year, I played my junior year, my full junior year, and I played 8 games in my senior year.
Okay.
That was that.
You told me once that he gave you that pair of black Converse, and they were too small, weren't they?
They were a little too large.
Too big. So you're running around there in shoes that are too big.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. But it worked out. He created Mel Daniels. If it wasn't for him, none of this would exist.
And again, Will Robinson went on to become one of the legendary figures of basketball. I mean, he coached in college.
First black coach, Division I black coach in college.
Yeah, he worked for the Pistons forever, and he just died a few years ago.
A couple of years ago. I couldn't go to the funeral. I wouldn't have been any good. I mean, I would have, because it's hard to put in words, simply because Will Robinson changed everybody's life that he touched. Of the guys that I played with, 15 got scholarship to Division I schools. That's saying something. He made you accountable. He didn't take any excuses. You weren't allowed to have any excuses. That was not part of the program. He built the foundation of Mel Daniels and a lot of other guys. And I will be forever thankful and grateful to him.
What do you think your life would have turned out to be if Will Robinson had not grabbed you in the hallway that day?
I'm thinking probably following, my dad worked in a Chevrolet factory, probably that, or a thief or something.
Yeah.
So
what kind of factory did your dad work in?
Chevrolet Gear and Axle.
The axle?
Gear and axle.
Gear and axle.
Yeah, he made parts for vehicles.
Okay, I knew he had something to do with the auto industry. Yeah.
Right.
How did your blue collar background, your dad's blue collar background, factor into the player you became? Because you obviously you're in Detroit. Your dad's a factory worker. There's a whole blue collar element to this.
Well, first of all, my father was a strict guy, and I got a lot from him also. And my mother was the mediator. My father did not believe I was, practicing at 8:30 at night. He wanted to stop me from playing basketball, and my mother intervened. And said, if you have such a hard time with him coming home at 8:30, why don't you go to the gym? He saw that I was playing basketball, and that was all right. And then what really pushed it, I was at my grandfather's house one day, and I had a goal next to him, and I dunked the basketball. He was so amazed. He said, do that again.
He must have loved the idea of you getting a scholarship.
None of those things really set in. My father coming from North Carolina, he worked in the fields. I'm only 2 generations removed from slavery. He knew that you had to have an education. He didn't know about the college situation, the university situation, none of those things. So,
Now you said scholarship offers. Didn't you go to a junior college at first?
I went to Burlington Junior College.
You told me once that, well, first of all, let's look at your high school. I think you told me once it was about half black, half white.
Right.
You learned
it was probably 60-40 white.
But you learned at an early age to interact with everybody, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we did everything together. Porky, Bobby, and I still remember those guys. Michael. We just, we were just kids. And the first taste of that, when Carl and I went to apply for, Carl was a white guy. We went to apply for a job at a supermarket. He was hired and I wasn't.
Wonder why.
Why did that happen? Mike went up, he got a job, but they would hire me. So,
I see.
Yeah.
That had to be a culture shock. You're a kid who grows up in Detroit and you wind up in New Mexico.
Right. Well, it wasn't so much of a cultural shock because in Albuquerque, it's a melting pot. You have Indian, white, Spanish American, Mexican, blacks, Asian. The culture shock came from seeing the many cultures that were there and getting along. For the most part, it was a great atmosphere. I loved Albuquerque.
You're in the wide open spaces. You're from the
we were in a
city
valley. We were in a valley. Albuquerque's in a valley. Weather's beautiful all year round. I was shocked. It was 75 degrees Christmas, and I couldn't get over that. A young fellow coming from Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful time.
Did you spend the summers down there?
Yes and no. One summer when I had got all the accolades, I was All-American and stuff, and I went home to enjoy my family and my friends that I had left behind, and my father came to my room and said, you've been home a week, you haven't looked for a job yet. And I'm thinking, I'm home to rest and just kind of chill. He said, well, we need to get you a job so you can handle your financial responsibilities. And I'm thinking, so anyway, he got me a job at Ford on Woodward Avenue, and I was unloading boxcars and trucks. He would call me at 4:30 in the morning, it's time to go to work. I'd get up and eat. On the weekends, I had to be home at 12 o'clock. I mean, I took about, last part of June, last part of July, I kissed my mother on the forehead and said, Mom, I really can't take it.
You going back to school?
I know I couldn't take it. I love this. Like, I just can't take it. At dinner, I told my father, and he was kind of like, and I made up the excuse that I had to get back and start working out.
That's New Mexico.
He was trying to kill me.
Well, was that a motivation for your basketball? I mean, seeing your dad as a factory worker, experiencing some of that yourself?
It was just a part of who he was. I mean, he believed in hard work. He believed in, again, no shortcuts, and you had to take care of your responsibilities, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no.
I credit my father with a lot of who I am also today, because it was just his way. You had responsibility. If he asked you to go to the store, it was, oh, can I go later? It was none of that. Yeah. If he asked you to do something, it was now. If he wanted you to do it 2 hours from now, he would ask you 2 hours later. Everything had to be done now, and it wasn't, you had to make up your bed, you had your responsibility in the house, you had to do this, you had to do that, and those things were expected.
See, I would think people who saw you play would say, well, that's how he played basketball, that attitude showed up in your basketball game.
Yeah, my thought was, if I was going to practice, I did not feel that we should lose. It would kill me to lose a basketball game. I couldn't stand to lose, because if we had lost, what had happened, all the work we went into that particular game had gone down the tubes.
Daniels picks the ABA over the NBA, then a year later becomes an Indiana Pacer and takes on all comers when one-on-one continues. Welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Mark Monteith. Today's guest is former Pacer center Mel Daniels, who in this segment talks about his decision to join the ABA instead of the NBA out of college, and why he got into all those fights with the Pacers. You come out of New Mexico. You're an All-American. This is the 1967 as the ABA is formed. You're the 9th overall draft pick of the Cincinnati Royals in the NBA, and you're drafted by the Minnesota Muskies of the ABA. You chose the ABA, which was a fairly daring thing to do given the fact it's a new league and nobody knows how long it's going to last. I know it was a financial decision for you. What was the breakdown? What were the Royals offering? What did you get in Minnesota?
Well, the Royals offered me $12,500, and they were going to give me, I want to say, a $10,000 or $12,000 bonus. Back then, that was the Minnesota Muskies offered me $25,000 and a $15,000. No,
the math was pretty obvious.
If this didn't, maybe it didn't work, I still would have a chance to play
in the NBA.
In the NBA.
Yeah, your experience in Minnesota had to be interesting. And first of all, the money must have seemed awfully good.
Oh, back then,
to get $25,000
and a $15,000 bonus. My father was making, I want to say, $7,000. He couldn't believe it. He said, "How much money are they giving you to play?" Back then, that was, gas was what, 20 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
And cars, you could get a brand new Cadillac for $5,000. I bought a Chevy.
Well, yeah, you told me once the first car you bought. Well, a lot of guys when they get their money go out and buy a brand new nice car. You bought something else, didn't you?
I bought a Buick 50. I bought I think it was a 62 Buick.
Station wagon? You bought a used?
I bought a used station wagon. Because that could get me from point A to point B. That was fine. Yeah.
So you weren't into the material side of things, obviously.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Now, you got married in Minneapolis, right?
Yes.
While you were there. You told me once that the night you got married, you had to leave for an exhibition game?
The night we got married, anniversary October 2nd. And October 3rd, we left for 2 weeks for an exhibition.
Well, the Muskie franchise didn't last for long.
1 year.
And what was that like, playing there for a team that didn't do particularly well and nobody came?
It was awful. I mean, everybody was friendly and had tried to do what they could in a professional manner as I look back at it. But we'd have, maybe 1,000 people, 500,000 for basketball. But we didn't think about it. What we did was went out and played basketball the best we could.
Yeah.
And that's what was the most important thing, doing our job.
Yeah. The highlight that year for you was playing in the first ABA All-Star game at Butler Fieldhouse.
Right.
You should have been the most valuable player of that game. And Larry Brown wound up getting the trophy, but they took the voting too early. They took the voting with 4 or 5 minutes to go.
Right.
And then you had a late flurry there, and your team won.
Right.
But then you've told me this, that Larry Brown acknowledged that you should have won.
He came to the locker room and apologized. I think everybody was overjoyed to be in the situation they were in.
Yeah.
And we were pulling for one another. I appreciate him doing what he did, and I'll never forget that. But it didn't bother me. It didn't matter.
But he got a car.
Yeah,
you could have upgraded from that Buick.
And eventually I won a car, so it didn't matter.
That's right, you did later on, didn't you?
I won 2.
For All-Star games?
Or
for league?
For the league, I won a Chevelle, a green Chevelle, and a brown Cadillac.
There you go. Okay, it all worked out.
It all worked out.
Well, Larry sold the car and took the money anyway.
Yeah.
That was the game where Mike Storm, the Pacers GM, just gave away tickets left and right to get people out there because there was a blizzard.
But the house was packed.
Had a big crowd, and it was nationally televised.
Yeah.
So at the end of that first year in May, you're traded to the Pacers in one of the greatest trade in the history of this franchise or any other, really. The Pacers trade Jimmy Dawson, who was in the Army, and Ron Kozlicki, and $100,000 to the Muskies for you.
Right.
You were Rookie of the Year. This is an absolute heist, but Minnesota obviously just needed the money to try to stay afloat.
I came within 5 minutes of being a Kentucky Colonel.
The verbal agreement had been made.
And it was
but they're on the way with what, $200,000 or something like that?
Yeah, it was something silly back then. But I'm happy it turned out the way it did because I've enjoyed every moment of being in Indiana with the people. And
the weird thing is, though, that you're so loyal by nature that you didn't want to be traded. You were kind of settled in Minneapolis, even though you were going to a better situation. It took you a while to get adjusted and be happy here.
Right, it did. Mike Storm went out of his way to make me feel at home here. The ball players went out of their way to make me feel home here. You know, so it was a great situation.
I think you told me that when you first got to town, they took you out to the Speedway.
I went out to the Speedway. In fact, I was the Grand Marshal. I rode around the Speedway. I was in the parade. It was crazy.
On race day, you mean?
Yeah.
You were in the parade?
Yeah.
That had to be crazy.
It was. It was nuts. I enjoyed it. You know,
to have that many people, and you know, you were well known here among basketball fans because you had been Rookie of the Year. I mean, people were excited.
Yeah, they introduced me, and you know, I heard this roar. I couldn't. It was great.
And you know, your first year with the Pacers, you get off to a slow start. Larry Staverman gets fired 9 games into the season.
Yes.
And here comes Slick.
And Slickster came in.
What was that culture change like? What did Slick do?
That was the biggest shock. Yeah. Because in Minnesota, I was a jump shooter. I was, you know, first practice, he told me, don't you ever shoot a jump shot beyond 50 feet again. That was the end of
that. And he didn't say it that nicely, did he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. People cannot imagine the amount of fun we had, you know. Not just the Pacers, but the whole league.
The whole league,
because we're fierce competitors, but afterward we enjoyed trying to make this thing work.
Yeah, the league was just trying to survive, so everybody was in the same boat, basically.
Right.
And well, your most memorable game, or one of them, was a 56-point game
31.
Out at the Coliseum, 56 points and 31 rebounds.
I just read about it.
Against the New Jersey Nets. Yeah,
that was one of those nights when the rim was as big as the ocean, and you know, it just was falling.
You were the guy who was always standing up for teammates. I've read all these press clippings. You know, you would criticize the fans for booing Jimmy Rail. Then you'd criticize the fans for booing, you know, Rick Mount or Freddie. You were always sticking up for your teammates in the press if they were starting to boo somebody. And contrary to what a lot of people think, the fans back then, they were quick to get on players. And, you know, you guys had great success, but things started going sour a little bit. They'd be all over you. So you were always jumping out and sticking up for a teammate. Seems to just be an aspect of your personality.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a teammate, be a teammate, a true one. You know? And that means on and off the floor. I mean, we did everything together. When after practice, we'd go eat, or we'd go to Netto's, or we'd go whatever. I mean, it was like after each game on the road, you had to spend 45 minutes. That was a rule.
Slick's rule.
Slick's rule. You had to spend 45 minutes with the team.
Yeah.
So those things, was a part of it, and it was somebody, I wouldn't allow anybody to challenge him out in the street, and I wouldn't allow anybody to talk about him in the paper or anything.
People who saw Mel Daniels play will remember him for being in a lot of fights. You were in more fights by far than anybody who's ever played for this franchise.
Well,
and I mean, how many fights do you think you were in as a player?
Not that many, a couple probably.
Oh, come on. Now, there were more than a couple, because I personally saw more than a couple.
Well, again, I very emotional, very dedicated to what I was doing, and I didn't want anybody to take advantage of me or the teammates. It was time to go. It was time to go. And that was another thing, Slick. You back down from no one. We set the tone. We'll win the game with a fight.
Got to win something.
Got to win something.
But I don't remember. I don't remember Roger ever being in a fight, or Freddie, or I think Neto maybe a couple times, but there weren't. It's not like anyone else was getting in fights. It was always you.
Well, they had their moments, but it was just like, I don't know. It was like I don't know, out of control. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you're emotional.
Yeah, I'm very emotional, and like I said, I hated to lose it. I didn't want to lose.
Now, had you been that way in high school and college? Did you get in fights as a high school and college player?
No, college.
You did in college?
I got in fights in college.
Well, back then a player could get in a fight and not be labeled a thug.
We get in a fight here, like the funniest thing they have when they got that fight altercation in Detroit.
Yeah.
And commentators, what a blow to the game and how ugly that was garbage. That was nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. We would fight for an hour and have all the stands, everywhere. People go to the bench and walk on the floor and see the guy against just charge and start fighting again. So it's joke anymore how they overemphasize things, how they dramatize things.
In your day, you would not even get kicked out of a game if you were in a fight.
No.
You did clean up and life would go on.
Now they'll fine you and they want to put you in jail and it's crazy.
It's the end of the world now.
It's another world, yeah. And I'm still trying to get used to it. Because if they had seen us, I mean, my God, they would. Basketball would have been banned in the United States, for Christ's sakes. There wouldn't be any basketball.
Yeah, because I've gone back and looked at newspaper articles and at games where you were in a fight, and it was barely mentioned. And I'm sure there were a lot of fights that were not mentioned at all.
Not at all.
But it was hardly even news if there was a fight back then.
Freddie picked up Larry Brown and picked him at half court and threw him down, and kept on playing. But a guy throw a ball at somebody. How horrible that is.
Yeah.
Throw the ball at him. What kind of fan? And they go crazy, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? What are you looking at? We're young, crazy, and enjoying life.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna live forever.
Daniels' basketball career ends, and he turns his attention to gentler pursuits like horses and poetry when One-on-One continues. Welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Mark Monteith. Today's guest is former Pacers center Mel Daniels, who, when his playing career ground to a halt, had more time to devote to his other interests. In this segment, he'll talk about his love for horses and poetry. Well, you played on 3 ABA championship teams, 1970, 72, and 73. Through those years, does anything stand out as the highlight for you, the very best moment?
Not really. I mean, I when we won, it was fantastic. The only thing that bothered me, and every time we played in the last game,
last regular season
championship game, the championship, when we stopped playing basketball, it bothered me.
Oh, okay. When the season was over,
when we were in the championship round, it bothered me. I don't know why it bothered me.
You weren't looking forward to the off season?
No, I wanted to play basketball.
I want to keep playing.
How stupid is that? But it really bothered me.
Well, I think you really appreciated the camaraderie you had with your teammates. You really got into that family atmosphere.
Yeah, but you know what? Afterward, we'll go after the season. We'll go and relax. Freddie call everybody, and we meet at the playground.
Where did you play in the off seasons back then? What did you do?
We played at the Jewish Community Center. We played projects over here.
At Lockfield?
Lockfield Garden.
Okay.
Yeah, we played at Indiana Central. Yeah, wherever. We
Just go play pickup games?
Pickup games. Freddie have us going through little drills. And Roger, of course, get out of here, you're not the coach.
I'm
We had
surprised
to go
even
pick
so.
Roger up. No, we had to pick him up.
You had to go pick him up.
We'd go pick him up. He'd drink Coke or beer while we were practicing.
You can get away with that if you hit game winners like he does, right?
Yeah, we allowed him to rest.
And you win your third ABA title in '73. That's 3 in a 4-year period. In '74, there's some signs that things are starting to crack a little bit. The regular season, you guys weren't as into it as much. The playoffs, I think you got to the conference finals.
Right.
I'm trying to recall
We
exactly.
did. Right, and there were a lot of things going on.
Was it a case of, it's human nature for people who have a lot of success to start to lose some of their motivation and their discipline?
That's the first time there was a little tense of bickering. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but there was a little tense of bickering and, some poor decisions on people's parts. And
you mean for the roster, that kind of thing?
People playing in front of people and that the older fellas didn't think should be playing. And so, anyway, to make a long story short, I guess it was time for some movement.
Well, they didn't hesitate, because after that '74 season, Slick trades you, Roger, and Freddie to Memphis, where Mike Storn is the general manager. He was the original Pacer GM.
Right. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, if we had left, this franchise would have folded.
If you had not left, the franchise would have folded, but because they couldn't afford to pay you?
Right.
Did
People
you
don't know that.
Did you feel that way at that time?
At the time, in my contract, I had no trade clause.
So you could have vetoed the trade, and they would have had to pay you, and they couldn't afford to pay you. Is that what you're saying?
They can afford to pay all three of us.
What was it like going from this, where you won championships, to Memphis, where there's really nothing going on?
At the time, Storm told us that we would be together.
You, Roger, and Freddie.
And Freddie would be together.
And Rick Mount was down there at first.
Right, Rick was there. And this is when the reality of business really hit me, or the business world hit me. Well, a month down there, Roger was traded, and then Freddie was traded. Rick got hurt. Later in that season, I was taking a shower and hurt my back, and everything went south.
You hurt your back in the shower?
Yeah. Been able to pick up some soap.
That 1 year in Memphis, you averaged 9.8 points. As you said, you've hurt your back.
Yeah.
Then you sat out a year. Were you back in Indianapolis that year next year?
Right.
Sitting out? Doing what? Just
messing
with your horses?
Messing with the horses, just chilling.
Yeah.
Just messing around, yeah.
But then you came back. He attempted to come back in the NBA the next year with the New York Nets.
Right.
And this is the 76-77 season. You played 11 games, averaged 3.5 points. Obviously, at this point, physically, you're done.
My body was done. My body was done.
But talk about your decision to make that, try to make that comeback.
I wanted to play and I didn't want to play.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd, give it another shot. And it didn't work out, and I was released. They cut me.
When you were released,
and the guy who cut me before had a heart attack.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was that?
I can't think of his name. I was just trying to think of his name.
Okay. They kept the guy, and he went on. He later had a heart attack. So when you were released by the Nets during that season, were you upset or were you relieved?
I was relieved. I was happy that it happened. I wanted to go out differently.
Yeah.
But I was happy. They said, well, Bill Melchior ain't released me. And he said, well, I know it'd be a couple of days before you move out and stuff like that. And they paid me for the whole year. I got credit for the whole year. They paid me the whole year. And he said, well, I know it's going to take a couple of days, and then we'll have all your stuff ready. That night I had my bags packed. The next morning I left.
Yeah. And drove home, huh?
Came home.
Wow.
I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good thing.
It's interesting how many players, such as yourself, who have great careers. Not everybody goes out like Reggie Miller. For a lot of guys, it's going out with a whimper, so to speak, where you're released, you're at the end of your career, not able to do what you once did. It's just that kind of ending for most players, really. For you, George, Neto, Roger,
right?
Probably, I think Freddie actually too.
Yeah.
You just get released at some point. And not everybody goes out with a banquet and a banner going up to the rafters.
No, I mean, I think everybody would like to end it on a high note, but when it's over, you got to go. It's sad. It's reality, but when it's time to leave, it's leave it to somebody else.
So when you came back home, was there any kind of a difficult adjustment period? You're back in Indianapolis. The Pacers are going on without you.
No, not really. You feel it for a while that you can still play, but you know you can't. You feel a part of it, but you're not really. I would come to games, and they would have back then. They had, guys come in and for speaking engagements and mingling with the fans, and I didn't want to do that because I thought it was taking away from the guys who were playing. So I messed with my horses.
How did you become interested in horses? You're a city kid from Detroit. How do you become interested in horses?
Some friends and I walked to State Fair from 8 Mile, and I almost was kicked by a horse. When I got to the University of Mexico, I used to go horseback riding. And I said to myself, if I was ever able to own a horse, I'd certainly try to own one. Because I fell in love with them.
Yeah.
They're the perfect athlete. All they ask you to do is taken care of, and have an understanding between the rider and the horse, and things work out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't they won't come in and ask for a raise or a new saddle or bridle or whatever. They're just, to me, I love my horses. I absolutely love them. And over the years I've learned a lot about them, training them, and different.
How many horses do you have right now?
Right now I have 12.
12?
Yeah. Well, actually I have 10.
10?
10 horses.
10 horses. You live up in Sheridan?
I live in Sheridan.
And how much land do you have up there?
I have, let me get this right, 77 acres now.
You have 77.
No,
you used to have more.
Yeah.
So you took some of your Pacer money in the ABA and bought all that land up in Sheridan.
Yeah. It was $950 an acre.
$950 an acre.
$950 whole dollars.
Wow. What year did you make this purchase? Do you remember?
That was I want to say 77.
What year did you go to Indiana State as an assistant coach?
Yeah. I went
because you stopped playing in the 76-77 season. Did you sit out another year?
Yeah. And then Coach King asked me to come down.
Yeah.
He had an aneurysm.
Right.
Hodges took over.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it just the 1 year you were down there?
I was there 2 years.
Was your first year Larry's the championship
right.
year? Okay.
And then I was there a year after that, and then they fired Bill.
Mm-hmm. At that stage, you're still pretty young. You're not far removed from playing. Did you practice with him?
Yeah.
Did you get on the court with him?
Let's see, about 3 weeks. He wanted one-on-one, and I would kill him. And then after about the third week, things changed. And I stopped playing him. Started killing me.
You have had, you've been an assistant coach for the Pacers. You were an interim head coach, and we've talked about how emotional you were as a player. It seems that you couldn't handle the emotions as a coach. I mean, you were so emotional that you weren't able to turn it down as a coach, were you?
No. In fact, my sister called me and said, "You can't do that. You'll kill yourself." Because it was hard for me to slow down. I enjoyed it. I mean, I lost 14 pounds in 2 days. I lost 14 pounds in 2 days. Dave Torsing and I, Dave would come to the game with one brown sock on and one blue sock. I mean, it was we were, Donnie, bless his heart, entrusted us in a situation because we knew basketball, but we didn't know it from that particular angle. We gave it a best shot. It didn't work. And I went into Donnie and George and said, I appreciate you, but I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to embarrass the team or myself,
I remember Reggie, who was on the team then, saying that I was genuinely concerned about Mel's health.
Yeah.
Because you were so passionate and emotional about it.
I lost all perspective on everything. It was just focused on basketball and coaching, and then 2 games I fell apart.
It was 2 games.
It would be different now that I've been in it so many years. The emotions calmed down. You know what I'm saying? But it's too late. But but then, I was coming off the mindset of a basketball player.
I remember listening to a game on the radio once in early days of the ABA, and Jerry Baker had recorded an interview with you, and you read a poem. And I know you've written a lot of poetry in your days. How did that get started?
I started writing poetry when I was in junior high school.
Junior high school?
Yeah.
Any particular reason?
It's my doodling.
Doodling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I doodle.
It just kind of comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
How many poems do you think you've written?
Probably somewhere between 20 and 30,000.
20 and 30,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a favorite poem that you've written?
One I wrote for Reggie when he was thinking about coming back.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have it?
It's in here somewhere, I think.
As Mel looks for his poem, we'll take a break. One-on-One returns in a moment. Welcome back to One-on-One. I'm Mark Monteith. Today's guest is former Pacers center Mel Daniels, who found that poem he wrote for Reggie Miller. Here we go.
Once the decision is finally made and you're comfortable with the thought, there's no turning back now, my man. Your body is just shut off. And no matter how you make the statement, on that final day, clean your locker and your mind and quietly walk away. And for the next few months, and especially in the fall, that old urge will come over you, and you'll still think you can play basketball. You'll analyze the game and how it's being played, and say to yourself, if it was me, that shot I'd have easily made. But the sad reality of it all, and it has a lot to do with the truth, the game has just passed you by. Let's leave it to the youth. It's true that you may get a shot, set a screen just like you once did, but that one shot, one screen, one board, let's leave it for the kids. Because in the era that you played, those things alone would have never been enough. You've had pride in your game and confidence in yourself. And besides, you were double tough. Knowing when to say when, leaving the game better than it was. Knowing in your heart of hearts, you've heard the final buzz. And thoughts of giving it one more shot will eventually fade away. But that secret desire deep inside your heart will keep telling you that you can still play. But as long as there's thoughts and just a thought, and you cling to it for fun, just remember, when you did it the way you did it, your body was quick, your mind was fresh, and my man, you were still young.
Now, how long did it take you to write that poem?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Wow. And so
That's for Reggie.
You called and read that to Reggie when
Yes.
he was thinking about coming back?
Uh-huh.
Do you think it influenced his decision?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think you did him a favor.
I think I did.
Yeah. Well, because you had experienced it. You made your comeback after sitting out 1 year and tried to play for the Nets.
Don't work.
And it didn't work. Reggie sat out 2 years.
It would never worked.
And it would not have worked. What was your top salary as a Pacer?
My top salary as a Pacer, with the Pacers, was 80 grand, but there was other things that added to it. It was 100 and a quarter.
Okay. So 125,000.
Yeah.
That was good for then, but
That was great for them.
yeah.
Wilt was making 200 grand. I think Oscar was making something like 175,000.
Yeah. Well, as a two-time MVP of the league and winning 3 championships, obviously you deserved a nice salary. But that's why you say you had to be traded because they could not afford to
They
keep paying
couldn't
that.
afford to keep us.
I had the impression, we're talking late 60s, and this is an era of some racial unrest, and there's rioting. Dr. Martin Luther King's assassinated.
Right.
As a kid in junior high school at that time, I always had the feeling that the Pacers were actually kind of bringing the community together. The Coliseum was on 38th Street.
Right.
It was the one place you would go in the city where black and white people would be.
Right.
I would see the post-season banquets on television, and you and Neto would be up there cracking jokes on each other. Do you feel that was the case, that you guys really did something?
I think that people really rallied behind the Pacers because, it kind of eased tension, especially in the city. Now, the outlying areas was a little different, there's some, there's little towns around it.
You told me once about an autograph request you got in the mail from somebody. Do you remember what I'm talking about here?
The little fella up north, he said, black guys aren't as good basketball players as white guys, but we would really love your autograph because we think you really play hard. I had that letter. It burned up in the fire. It was from a little fella up in, I would say Michigan City.
Michigan City or something. Black players aren't as good as white players, but we still like you, and can I have your autograph?
Yeah, that's right.
Did you send them one?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yes, I did. We didn't realize at the time the effect that we had, but we felt the change in attitudes, The second championship, I couldn't buy anything. I go to the store, I was given washers and dryers. I mean, I couldn't buy anything. I felt bad about going to the store. They wouldn't let you buy anything. But it was to the point where we felt we were taking advantage of people. Dinners, we go and eat. It was paid for.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, we're talking 3 championships in a 4-year period, so it was rolling.
It was.
You came close to the other 2.
And Slick, I never forget this. When he thought we was, the first champions, when we were just coming on. For every game you went on, for every 5 games you went on the road, I'm buying dinner. And we ran a string on. Well, that's all over. We're not gonna do that anymore.
You're gonna bankrupt it.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of good memories.
You must feel like you had a part in building downtown, because the success of the Pacers at the Coliseum led to the construction of Market Square Arena downtown, which really helped revitalize downtown.
Sure.
Market Square Arena becomes Conseco Fieldhouse. And really, I think the argument, I don't think it can be denied, that if not for the early success of the Pacers winning championships over on 38th Street, downtown today would look completely different.
Coach wouldn't be here.
The Colts would not be here.
Colts would not be here.
Yeah. I mean, it took Mel Simon, to save him in the early '80s, but the ball got rolling because of the success of the ABA Pacers.
People don't understand. Look, we have a beautiful minor league facility. We have the Colts here. Hockey is here. Pro basketball, amateur capital of the world. So, and I think we had a part of all of those things happening simply because we were doing what we were doing at a high level.
Absolutely.
But thank God for the Simons.
Yeah. It all would have gone away if not for them.
Thank God for Mel Simon.
Yeah.
And her. So.
Okay, I have a theme question that I've asked everybody who was once an athlete. When you dream at night, when you're sleeping, do you have dreams that you're playing again? That you're in a game?
Oh, every once in a while.
Yeah? What's going on? Are you playing well? Are you playing poorly? What's happening?
We're just playing and enjoying.
Yeah? Are you playing for the Pacers or for someone else, or
just always the Pacers?
And you're just playing and nothing in
particular?
particular?
I was playing with Reggie and Dale and those guys.
You're playing with Reggie and Dale?
Yeah, that's crazy. Just playing back, just playing. No wins or losses or anything like that. Just playing and having a good time.
I got to believe all those years Reggie played, and in the late '90s when they were making their championship runs, I bet you daydreamed about being part of that team, huh? Would have liked to have been a part of all that?
I'd love to have been a part of that team. All guys still like to be around the action.
Absolutely.
We like to be around the action because this is what we've done all our lives.
So you don't have any plans to retire as a scout, do you? You want to stay around this as long as you can?
A little while. A little while. I would stick around a little while. I'd like to see this change before I leave it.
Because, Slick's saying, don't get off the bus.
That's
and
right.
He certainly has followed that, and I would think you would do the same. As long as somebody will have you and you can be around the game.
Well, I like to be around the game, but the older you get, it comes to a point in time where it's time to leave it. I always love basketball. I always love Pacer basketball. But I know there's going to be a time when I, just take my hat off and hang it up and close the door office for good.
Well, that obviously happened a lot sooner than Daniels planned, as the Pacers fired him just over a week ago. I'll return with more of Mel Daniels, but before we go, here's one of his former teammates, Rick Mount, on his importance to the Pacers championships.
Mel Daniels was the key. Storm brought him in, made a trade, got Mel Daniels, or they don't win any championships.
No question.
They had some good players, don't get me wrong, you know that, Mark. I played on on that championship team. This is my second year.
Yeah, 72.
But the only reason we won the championship, we had good players, some good players around, but Mel Daniels, he's the key.
Welcome back to One on One. I'm Mark Monteith. Hey, if you're too young to have watched Mel Daniels play, you'll have to take my word for it about the fighting. It wasn't unusual at all to see him throw a few punches if he considered it necessary. I remember one game against the Carolina Cougars when he was knocked down by Carolina guard Bob Verga. Daniels was off balance when Verga threw his punch, so it looked worse than it was. Mel was embarrassed, so he decided to resume matters at halftime. He followed the Cougars off the court and would have found Verga in the locker room if Carolina's coach Bones McKinney hadn't intercepted him. Believe me, that attitude, along with Coach Slick Leonard's hard-nosed style, rubbed off on the rest of the players, just as Reggie Miller's confidence and energy rubbed off on his teammates. Now don't forget, if you missed parts of this episode or simply want to hear it over and over again, you can catch it, along with most of the others, on our website at 1070thefan.com. Just scroll to the bottom of the homepage, click on the one-on-one window, and you're set to become one of the city's best-informed sports fans. I'll be back next week with another episode of One on One, right here on 1070 The Fan.